My girlfriend asked me, what is it that would make me happy? She said that I'm unhappy in this country. I kind of agree with her, but I wouldn't say I'm unhappy. I just want to move to a place where I feel more connected to other people, and as I don't feel like an outsider, where my opinions don't make me feel like I'm on the fringes of society. You know, I don't expect us to be in a utopia. You know, it's going to be fucking hard to achieve a utopia where everyone's happy, no one has to work hard, there's no poverty. You know, that's going to take a lot of time and effort and human understanding and education and like a spiritual revolution more than a democratic revolution. That has to come from within people. But you know, I'm not going to be like, right, I'm going to be unhappy until we're in a utopia. You know, I see we're in a centre now, yeah, and the utopia's that way, and hell is that way, yeah. I'd rather we was at least moving in the direction towards the utopia, rather than moving in the direction towards hell. Do you know what I mean? I've read 1984, and it looks like we're moving towards that, you know. Why are we moving away from a fucking dystopian, like, hell future? That we seem to be actively moving towards that. And they're doing it with our consent. You know, they've got our full consent. You know, I've tried to withdraw myself from society as much as I possibly can. You know, I don't like shopping in Tesco's. I don't like buying coffee from Costa. You know, I don't like buying cheap shit from Primark, but, you know, I don't really have that much of an option. I try as hard as I can. You know, and it's just like, what? I don't want to be involved in, I don't want to be an active player in their game, basically. You know, my taxes, some of the stuff that my money pays for, you know, I don't want my money to pay for nuclear bombs. I don't want to be a contributor to nuclear bombs. You know, if they dropped a nuclear bomb, if Britain dropped a nuclear bomb tomorrow, you could blame the person that pressed the button. You could blame whoever the aggressors were in the situation. You could have blamed the Prime Minister. You could blame the heads of the military. But I would blame myself, and I'd look around, because if it was just the government on their own and the army on their own, they wouldn't have the resources or the manpower or the expertise to build a nuclear bomb. We're giving them that manpower. We're giving them that money. You know, who pays for the army? We pay for it. So without our consent, they wouldn't be able to invade Iraq. They wouldn't be able to bomb Libya. They wouldn't be able to bomb Syria and Iraq. They wouldn't be able to manufacture these guns to fucking pump into the Middle East. Without our consent, without our money, we are the people that are enabling them to do these things. And it makes me feel sick. I don't want to be the person, one of the people responsible for war, for nuclear war. Why do you even need them? You know, and that's just like, you know, they called like the SNP extremist, radical, because they want to get rid of a nuclear bomb. If you want to get rid of the nuclear bomb, or like shrinking Britain's army or withdraw from these interventionist wars that we're having, you're a radical, you're unpatriotic, you know, you're an extremist. What, for not wanting to build genocidal weapons makes you an extremist? I'm not entirely sure, you know. If you wanna redress the inequality in the United Kingdom, you know, if you want to take away from the 1% and redistribute that wealth to the poor, to like raise everyone's living standards, you are a fucking radical, and Cameron's coming after you. You know, I think I want to see a complete abolition. I want them to just dissolve Parliament, the House of Lords, dissolve the House of Lords, local government, dissolve local government, the monarchy, dissolve the monarchy, destroy the fucking lot, and rebuild it in a democratic way. You know, that's what I want to see, an end to this current system. But Theresa May says anyone who wants to undermine our British values, our institutions, is an extremist. But I don't want to destroy Parliament just so like we can install Nazism or fascism. I want to destroy Parliament so we can have a real democracy, to improve this country, to improve the lives of the majority of people. Does that make me extreme? Does that make me someone that the police have got to watch? Because I believe in anarchy, not no rules, but no rulers. These people, these fucking politicians, they're not rulers. They're elected representatives. We're supposed to filter, it's like a pyramid scheme, They're at the top, looking down on us. It should be the other way. They're at the bottom, we're at the top, putting our views down on them. Why are they ruling us like this? I just don't understand, really, We could bring this government down in a fucking instant. In an instant, we would just withdraw our consent, our taxes. We wouldn't vote anymore. If if like 10% of the people turned up to vote, how would they legitimately have a mandate to run this country? I don't think they would. We need to find the way that they're getting power. These institutions, the courts, the police, Lords, Commons. These power structures. We need to find them and dissolve them. Rewrite. We need a fucking constitution in this country. They were saying it was a constitutional... They say the unwritten constitution. How can you have an unwritten constitution? That means you're basically interpreting ideas in any way you see fit. There needs to be a clear written constitution that can only be interpreted one way, and that is the way it was intended to be interpreted by the people. It needs to be written by the people. And you've got David Cameron saying he's going to write a constitution based on these British values, and we're going to scrap the Human Rights Charter and reinstall it based on British values. But how can you have one nation of values, one tiny fucking nation of values like that small? Everyone's got to fucking conform to that little snippet of Britishness. What is that? That's fucking... like fascism. Everyone must conform to our fucking one unilateral British value. You've got people, you got socialists, you got capitalists, you got anarchists, you got libertarians, you got authoritarianisms, you got Muslims, you got Jews, you got Christians, you got fucking people that call themselves Jedis, Pastafarians. You've got all these people in England. You got white people, black people, fucking brown skinned people. You've got all types of races, opinions. You're never going to get them all to conform to like one little charter of British values. You're basically saying any other opinion other than what we say, fucking smite the lot of them. It just seems like I said, we're moving in the wrong direction. If it seemed like there was progress, we were moving towards better times. We were moving towards more equality. We were moving towards getting rid of war and nuclear bombs and authoritarianism around the world. If we were doing that within our country, moving towards a nicer place, you could at least say, things aren't perfect, but we've got a fucking aim. But we're moving backwards. We're moving towards like fucking Stalinist, like authoritarianism, like only one culture allowed, only one opinion allowed, only one viewpoint allowed. If what they mean is capitalism, fuck that, because I do not agree. I don't want to conform to your bullshit, Theresa May. Call me an extremist, fair enough. If that's what we're doing, if that's what we're talking about, protecting capitalism, protecting unelected members of the Lords sitting and passing laws on the paupers, if we're talking about protecting the monarchy and an unelected head of state in this country, if we're talking about protecting those kind of British values, if that's what you're talking about, intervention wars for oil and profit, if that's what we're talking about, if we're talking about protecting the right to sell arms to Saudi Arabia so they can drop bombs on Yemen, if that's what we're talking about, protecting British values, then fuck your British values, basically. Because that's not what I was brought up to believe in. I was brought up to believe in fairness and equality and open-mindedness. But I just don't want to... I've got very little choice. My passport is always ready by the side of my bed. I'm going to book a ticket to France and just fuck off, basically. Because it's either that or spend my entire life struggling against this system until a real change is made. And it's fucking tiresome, I tell you. Thank you for watching.